Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm your host, Jakari Jackson. It is Friday, February 5th, 2016, and here's a look at our top stories.
Tonight, a major victory for gun rights advocates as a federal appeals court says that semi-automatic firearms deserve the highest level of protection that the Constitution allows. Then, police in Utah have been advised to be on the lookout for anyone traveling to the state with the Gadsden flag or other dangerous symbols.
Are you some kind of a constitutionalist?
And Ron Paul says that Ted Cruz is not a libertarian, and he's owned by Goldman Sachs. All that plus Sean Stone up next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
There could be a rallying cry because we see the disintegration of media's control through the studio system. We see now more online programming, right? We can release films online. We can have shows like yours that are uncensored. So that's how the system will break down its power.
Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.
Interesting you talk about how that you feel like the American president has way too much power that any one individual should have on the planet. Now recently, I think it was Mitch McConnell who wanted to, I think it was last week, he wanted to rush in the war powers authorization that was basically not limited by geography or time, meaning that if Obama, so meaning that Obama could even, like, if he wanted to deploy American troops on American soil, practically martial law.
Well, that's what they want, and I've always thought that one of the things that happened after 9/11, I won't say it was entirely a military coup, but it had aspects of a military coup. No question, the military took on far more power than it ought to have, I would argue probably it shouldn't have any power, but certainly it was massively increased, very, very unfortunately. So, and we know this is what they'd like. They'd like to, if some, just like in Paris, if some city is giving them trouble, maybe not paying the property taxes in a future depression, send in the troops.
That's an interesting point. I mean, the IMF, World Bank, they could ask Obama to deploy troops to this third world country that's behind on their debts, even though the debts are designed for them not to get out of. So you could literally have American troops maybe going in and occupying countries and taking their natural resources and assets to settle these so-called debts.
Or confiscating our guns.
Yeah.
Occupying Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I mean, they love this kind of stuff. They love people who are in government. They love doing this to people. Mm-hmm. This is what they get a charge out of. That's why they love wars. They love killing. Yeah. They love ordering people to be killed, drone strikes. Mm-hmm. I always think of Obama as when he's signing the death orders over his scrambled eggs in the morning or whatever and enjoying it. Mm-hmm. This is not good. People who like that kind of stuff, who crave it, not good. I remember reading about an interview that Roy Medvedev had of Khrushchev after he'd been kicked out of power. He's in exile, and he was going to do a book about him. And to me, one of the most interesting things was Khrushchev talked about how he really just was tough for him to hold on to power in one sense because he just was getting old. He felt that he was getting tired of everything. He said at some point in your life, you don't care about cars, you don't care about dachas, vacation homes, you don't care about money, you don't care about women, you don't care about food. He said, although the one thing you never tire of is the exercise of power. People like Khrushchev or like Obama or all the other people in government, they love crushing other people, ordering them what to do. They love, and if there's going to be a hurricane, they love ordering people out of their homes, ordering them to go here or there. They just live for that kind of stuff. These are bad people.
That was an excellent report from Kit Daniels. Now let's talk a little bit about this election coming up. I'm sure you haven't heard enough about it already, but I hear these talks about the vast right-wing conspiracy against Madam Clinton. Now, is it true that Republicans don't like Hillary for the mere fact that she is a Democrat? Yes, that is true. It's also true that Democrats don't like Republicans for the simple fact that they are Republicans. And now we see that Mrs. Clinton is spending more on polling than 6 GOP candidates combined. They say Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush each spent about $150,000. Ben Carson and Donald Trump declined to buy any polling research. Ted Cruz spent the most out of the Republican Party with $380,000. But Mrs. Clinton spent a staggering $720,000 on polls last quarter, as much as the 6 top Republicans combined. So as they say, it's the Republican machine and they're after Hillary, and be very clear, I'm not a Republican. I'm just saying this is what they say. The Republican machine's after Hillary and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Mrs. Clinton, you're outspending everybody. What possible, complaint do you have? You're getting mad because they're going after you for legitimate things like Benghazi, the email scandal, which I think Benghazi is a bigger deal than the email scandal, but there is some legitimate stuff going on there, the 22 emails that they're saying they can't release because of security issues here in the nation. So yes, Mrs. Clinton, they do have a legitimate claim to go after you on. And now Mrs. Clinton isn't just fighting with the Republicans, she's fighting with people in her own party. Enter Bernie Sanders. Clinton blasts Sanders on Brady Bill in their first one-on-one debate. I don't think it was particularly progressive to vote against the Brady Bill 5 times, said Mrs. Clinton. I don't think it was progressive to vote to give gun makers and sellers immunity. That's not exactly what any type of gun law does. To say that the gun lobby, as they like to call it, is completely immune, no. I don't think that they should be demonized for the simple fact that they sell a gun. Like when they went after Bushmaster after Sandy Hook, they're trying to ban these guys or fine these guys for simply selling a product. That'd be like going after Ford or Chevy for simply selling a car. Now, if the car is defective, if the car is doing something it's not supposed to do, yeah, then you can have your class action suits and all that, but simply selling it is not a crime in and of itself. That's why I was very much against the Brady Bill. Now, as we're talking about the firearms, let's talk about people's rights. And this story shouldn't even be a story. I should just be able to sit up here and say, breaking news, judges follow the law, and move on to the next story, but we can't do that because we're into a point in this country where people just completely ignore the Constitution. And now we see people have a fundamental right to own assault weapons, a court rules. And this was a 3-judge panel in the U.S. Court of Appeals, the Fourth Circuit, that said the state's prohibition on what the court called the vast majority of semi-automatic rifles, commonly kept by several million American citizens, amounted to a violation under the rights of the Constitution. So this is something that's going on here in the United States of America. This was in Maryland. And yeah, like I said, I should just be able to say that, judges follow the law, but it is somewhat of a rarity that you see people just say, hey, yeah, they have a constitutional right. They can own anything they damn well please. Now let's talk about some international news. Now, we've heard a lot about these refugees going to foreign countries and causing some issues. And it's not because they're, refugees from whatever country. As a black man from Oklahoma, if a bunch of black guys from Oklahoma went over to Switzerland or Sweden or wherever and they were causing drama, they were raping people and harming people, I'd say, yes, put them in jail, not because they were black or from Oklahoma, but just because they were doing the crime. And now we see that there is something called a Code 291, and Swedish police are covering up thousands of crimes involving refugees. According to a report in a Swedish newspaper, around 5,000 incidents have been kept secret, including 559 cases of violence, 194 assaults, 2 terror threats, and 4 rapes. The article explains that the incidents have been covered up because of the directive from the National Operational Department that any information pertaining to the behavior of refugees be censored. And once again, I don't care where you're from, why you're there, whatever. if you're out there committing crimes, if you're doing 559 violent cases, 194 assaults, 2 terror threats, and 4 rapes, I'm like, yeah, you need to go to jail regardless of your race, religion, ethnic origin, or whatever else. It has nothing to do with race. It's just the simple fact you're doing this stuff. But they say they don't even want to report this. And we've seen this multiple times in many places going on all around the world, regardless. Even if there are people who grew up there in Switzerland or the Swedish people, domestic people who are raping people, yeah, they need to go to jail too. It's everybody who's in on the crime. Now, we'll circle back around to American politics and talk about the supposed crime that happened here recently with Ted Cruz stealing the election. Now, the Carson campaign has come out and accused Mr. Cruz of doing some dirty tricks, saying that Carson had pretty much suspended his campaign and give all your votes to me, Ted Cruz. And now we see Kurt Nimmo, who's been hot on the Cruz trail. I'll give it to Kurt. He was on the Cruz long before I ever was. But it says, the men behind Ted Cruz, neocons and the CIA propagandists. And he points out it's simply not his wife, Cruz's wife, the Goldman Sachs executive, the investment banking, or his unreported loan from a multinational investment banking firm. A closer look at Cruz reveals he's a neocon insider. And Cruz's foreign policy advisor is a notorious neocon, James Woolsey, the former director of the CIA during the Clinton administration, and the man in charge of his public relations is Dan Gabriel, and he is a former CIA covert action officer. So he fills his campaign with a bunch of CIA guys and neocons. And like I said, Cruz has done a lot of good stuff. I don't want to sit up here and completely bash the guy, but I also really don't trust the guy. I can say that for many other presidential candidates as well. So it's nothing Cruz specific. I just call him like I see him. If I see Trump doing something, I see Hillary doing something, I see Ben Carson, anybody else, and I call it like I see it. And this is why I don't particularly trust Ted Cruz. Like I said, he has done good things, but I'm not counting on him to be the one to pull the country out of the situation that it's in. And I'm not the only one. Ron Paul says Cruz is not a libertarian. He is owned by Goldman Sachs. You take a guy like Cruz, people are liking the Cruz. They think that he's for the free market. And in reality, he's owned by Goldman Sachs. I mean, he and Hillary have more in common than we would have with Cruz and Trump or any of them. So I just don't think there is much picking. And I do agree, since Ron's son, Rand, has dropped out of the race, I don't plan to vote for any of these people unless, some rock star, shoots up to the top. If David Knight runs for office, I'll write in David Knight. But until then, I don't think I'm going to be voting for anybody. But it wasn't just Cruz that Dr. Paul had to talk about. He also talked about Bernie Sanders. And here's a look at that clip.
Another question from the audience?
Yeah, Kit Daniels, Infowars.com. Dr. Paul, if you could debate Bernie Sanders, what would you say to him? And what would you say to the supporters who think that socialism works?
Bernie and I got along pretty well, and we talked a lot, knew exactly where we stood, and respected each other's views. And I think Bernie might have voted to audit the Fed, if I'm not mistaken. So give him the benefit of the doubt. But the closest I came to a real debate with somebody like Bernie Sanders was with Barney Frank up at the University of Pennsylvania. And the point that I try to make is, you do well as a principled progressive. And I can do this with Dennis Kucinich, whom I know very well. And say, well, you don't want to use force in the military. You want to protect civil liberties, and you don't like all this war. And sometimes Dennis and I would be the only two voting against some war position. But I said, why, and I propose this to Barney too, is why is it that you won't apply that same principle to, that you apply to social engagement, in social and sexual matters? Hands off, as long as it's voluntary, and the government just should be out of it. They should be out of marriage and everything else. And they agree with that. I said, why don't you apply that to economics? And they come up and they say, they understand the consistency. They say, well, it's different because freedom in markets allow people to become too rich, and then they run it and they own everything, and they will not listen to the argument that there's a difference between somebody getting bailed out by the Federal Reserve and they're on the special list versus somebody who produces a good product and we vote them their money and they haven't cheated or stolen or given us bad products and they make a lot of money. Why? I think it's sort of an envy and resentment But I talked to them, but I have to tell you that so far I haven't converted many diehard progressives, because some progressives, if you watch it on the internet, will have really close agreements, and they might, be talking about the same issue, but boy, they don't want to even introduce the notion that the libertarians are with them on this, because they're terrified that we might encroach on their power to redistribute wealth. So it's a tough argument, but that's because they have a stronger belief. Others are sort of in the middle, and they can be influenced, and they can be converted.
And in other news, we see that a doctor gets 30 years to life for murders in LA case tied to patients' overdoses. Now, this is somewhat of a rarity, because we see the sentence came after a Los Angeles jury found Dr. Lisa Singh guilty of second-degree murder, the first time a doctor has been convicted of murder in the United States for over-prescribing prescription drugs, a district attorney's office has said. So, yeah, like I said, this is a very rarity. I remember they were going after Michael Jackson's doctor. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what happened with that case. But yeah, it just goes to show, trust me, I'm a doctor, and there are plenty of good doctors out there. I'm not bashing them all, but the overprescription of pills, you go to a doctor. I remember just from my own personal experience, I had an issue, with my neck at one point, and the doctors wanted to cut me open. And then I went to a chiropractor, I went to a massage therapist, and I went to another lady who stretched me out in very painful ways, and I got rid of the problem. So, it's really, American medicine oftentimes goes to take a pill or let us cut you open. Meanwhile, if you go through more, I don't know if you would call that holistic means, you can work out a lot of these problems in a very natural and invasive way. Now, working out the problems, we've seen the people at the Bundy Ranch, we've seen people up in Oregon, and, regardless of what you think about these people, they're not the ones proclaiming violence, at least not all of them are. I can't say, for everybody, but now we see that a Utah Fusion Center is warning police about disaffected individuals traveling through the state to attend the Lavoy Finicum funeral. And they say basically be on the lookout, because these sovereign citizens are coming through your state. And the bulletin reads, look out for the visual indicators likely to be used by these disaffected individuals, including a Gadsden flag, the 3%er flag, the Oath Keeper militia symbol, and sovereign citizen imagery. And this is a bulletin from the Utah Statewide Information and Analysis Center. Once again, there's plenty of good people out there. They're just concerned about their land rights, but unfortunately, things ended in a very violent way, and hopefully they can resolve these issues and move forward without any further incidents. Now, our last story before we go into more special reports. Erica Lopez, the first Tennessee woman to enlist in a combat role, goes AWOL from the Army. Now, she was scheduled to return from leave on January 4th, but did not show up. And it's my understanding after 30 days in an AWOL status, a soldier is considered a deserter and a federal warrant is issued for her arrest. Now, I don't know what happened to the lady. As far as I know, she could have been hiking and be stuck under a rock somewhere. So I'm not going to pass judgment on her. But for any ladies who want to get into the military and combat role, it definitely does not look good for them. So stay tuned. Right after this break, we'll have more special reports. We have a report from John Bownley and McAdoo and many more coming up right here on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Look, I don't know what your problem is, but I simply cannot have students wandering the hallways during class, interrupting other classes, and giving prophecies of a great plague.
We believe in win-win, folks, treating people like we want to be treated. That's why we develop nutraceuticals with Dr. Group and other top researchers, chemists, scientists, you name it. He's one of our advisors, to come up with products like Anthroplex that is an original product that he made just for us. And this is a base system to make super male or super female vitality work even better. It is natural. It just helps get your body pumping and going in the way you need to be going. And Dr. Group is here till we go to break to tell us about the latest product at InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex, that out of the gates, and we do this all the time with a new product, we discount it out of the gates to get you to try it, knowing that you're going to love it. It'll sell out. So InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex, 15% off and free shipping for the next 2 days only when you get it with super male or female vitality. Let's go to Dr. Group. Why do you call this the foundation to start the fire, and then the super male takes you to the next level?
Well, we just look at the base problem that's going on right now in all over the world, which is the endocrine disrupting chemicals, the amount of estrogen that men have, the femininity of men, and what's going on even in children right now with low testosterone levels, low sperm count levels, and the problems that and the attack that we're seeing on the endocrine systems of both male and female. So I'm always looking for ways to boost that and to make it more effective and naturally get the body to start producing these hormones and balancing themselves. So what we decided to do was, how can we add a few other components in there that would actually boost the effectiveness of the super male vitality and at the same time address different issues that the male might have, so it would be a full approach. And one of those was zinc. And zinc is actually necessary for the production of testosterone. There's more and more studies coming out that zinc is essential for hormone balancing.
What is in the goatweed? You've got one of the purest, strongest organic forms of it. What's so magic about the goatweed?
Well, the horny goatweed was given that name because years ago in India, they noticed that a certain time of the year, this weed would grow and the goats would eat it and they would just go crazy with all the female goats. So that's how it was developed. It's called epimedium. And what that's been proven to do over thousands of years is increase sexual pleasure, help balance the male hormones. It can actually be used for women as well, but it really kind of resets and brings the hormone balance, improves sperm motility, and increases testosterone levels.
So it counters the stuff they've been throwing at us. Results will vary overall. All I know is dynamite. I mean, absolutely dynamite with the stamina, with the weightlifting, with the swimming. Folks, the new product is available. Anthroplex, available at InfoWarsLife.com. Dr. Group, thank you for developing this amazing product.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Stone, thank you so much for coming on. Paranormal Activity, securitysquad.com. But also let's plug your radio/TV program you're doing that's so popular. Tell folks about that.
Yeah, well, we're doing Buzzsaw, obviously, which you know you're going to be on a little bit later. And that's been online since 2013 with Tyrell Ventura and Tabitha Wallace, who ultimately split off to do Watching the Hawks for RT. And I also do that program with them. So,
and that's on RT Global, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the biggest shows in the world.
International, exactly. So we're really trying to cover the whole span of things from alternative news on television to the online sector, and then, as you mentioned, film. So, you know, we're trying to basically keep spreading the message and raising consciousness in every capacity that we can.
Well, it's very, very exciting. Tell folks exactly where they find Buzzsaw.
So Buzzsaw is, it's YouTube. I mean, that's where it lives, really, on YouTube. But there's a homepage, which is thelip.tv/shows/Buzzsaw. And we've done like 150 episodes at this point, and, you know, across the spectrum, from politics to the esoteric to the extraterrestrial to the economic. We've had Jim Rogers on recently. I know you've interviewed. We had Oliver Yannick most recently on Buzzsaw talking about the immigrant crisis in Europe and basically how
it's simply amazing, all the work you're doing, and it's so exciting. Let's get into Hollywood first before we get into all these other Clash of Civilizations. Am I wrong in saying that there's a major revolt against the orthodoxy of saying you're conservative or you're liberal? It's kind of like your dad has said in his big history series, just the whole thing we're told isn't real. We have to rethink the whole thing. I mean, is there a rebellion in Hollywood and in culture in general that's accelerating? I seem to really be seeing it erupt like Mount St. Helens, or is that just a pre-eruption, or am I wrong?
No, I mean, I think that there could be. It's difficult to put your pulse on what really is in Hollywood, because I'll tell you, aside from the academy level of Hollywood, which, I mean, look at the Oscars the last few years, you can see the Masonic symbolism all over it. And you see the fingerprints of government, for example, when Michelle Obama handed out the Oscar to Argo, remember that year, a few years ago. And the idea of this relationship of politics, military, and entertainment. Yes, there's always been a certain marriage there. We've seen how politicians.
Oh, obviously, it's the top of the pyramid for mind control. I mean, totally, I agree with you. But I'm saying there's more of a rebellion against that. Well, let's get into symbolism then, because you're an expert on that. But now, Super Bowl, Grammys, Emmys, huge pyramids, human sacrifice, Satan worship. I mean, it is just over the top. What is the point? Are they trying to bring something in?
Well, sure. I mean, take David Bowie's passing. Very, if you're a fan of Bowie's, obviously it's tragic, but it was also very sudden and on the night of the Golden Globes. And we've seen the last few years that oftentimes you'll see on the eve of one of these ceremonies, whether it was Philip Seymour Hoffman on the eve of the Super Bowl, or Whitney Houston on the Grammys, or Whitney Houston's daughter, I think the fall.
And your Skype's breaking up. He releases a music video of him dying 3 days before. Are you saying maybe he committed suicide as part of the ritual?
No, I'm not saying anything as far as suicide or even necessarily murder. What I'm saying is that if you believe in these forces that oftentimes are being invoked through rituals, then perhaps they are induced events. Maybe these are induced sacrifices. But
well, sure. What do you think about Randy Quaid then? Because we know that there are some big lawyers and folks out there that have been connected to getting rid of people so they can take their money. I mean, undoubtedly that happens. But I mean, what do you think about the supposed Hollywood mafia and the hit squads?
Sure, and I think we've seen certain indication that's a real thing, and that's been talked about. We tried to get Randy in our film, actually the same one that we wanted to get Roddy Piper in, and Randy couldn't get into the country because of what's happened ever since he came out speaking on this topic, and he's been basically run out of the country. So I do think that there is a real component to that, but ultimately, again, I think there's tiers. Remember, there's the higher level of power, and then there's the ones who are awake, who are like the Chris Carters and like my father and others who basically just say, look, we're going to speak our truth. And there could be a rallying cry because we see the disintegration of media's control through the studio system. We see now more online programming, right? We can release films online. We can have shows like yours that are uncensored. So that's how the system will break down its power. So you'll see a bifurcation basically between the higher ups, the ones who are trying to create rituals to continue their power and to.
That's right. Make no mistake, from Bohemian Grove to Skull and Bones to the Super Bowl, they are conducting high-level mystery school rituals, believing that entities are giving them power. Whether that's real or not, the elite believe that they are in contact with interdimensional beings giving them power on Earth.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we go into that in this new movie. When we talk about Paranormal Activity Security Squad, you'll get a taste of that realm in which the elites are dealing with, although we do it with a sense of humor.
Sure, that's a good way to get it to folks, is comedy. And there's also some lovely ladies in there, so it's always fun to have them in a film. But I mean, I want to talk about the film, but getting serious. You've told me, off record, some pretty interesting stuff about the Illuminati and things. I personally had some establishment run-ins with that type of stuff going on. But for those that don't know, there's obviously more than one Illuminati, and there are a lot of different cults and things, but a lot of high-level stuff. Are you ever going to tell folks about any of that?
I think, to be honest, it's such an experiential sort of perspective in a sense. It's too empirical to necessarily try to convince people. I mean, we've talked on your show about certain things that I've heard about and experiences I've had of, phone calls from 666 numbers and things that sound demonic that say they want my soul. Maybe other artists have experienced that.
Well, sure, that's folks messing with you, but you told me about more than that over in old jolly old England. Okay, I'm just joking. Let's just move on. Oh, okay, Sean Stone here with us today, and we have limited time. We'll have him back for a full hour in the near future. We appreciate his time. Getting into let's get into the symbolism first, because you want to talk about that, but then you wanted to talk about nuclear fusion, how they're trying to suppress truly free energy, CERN, where all this is going. Obviously, we're leading towards some type of energy moment where we do reach this energy singularity. I mean, what would you call it?
Yeah, maybe singularity could be a good way to describe it. Singularity basically is a point, right, when everything transforms, your entire perspective shifts, your whole understanding. If we achieve this sort of the free energy technologies that have been talked about by various people, from Kesha in Europe to Nassim Haramein and others, and those are the more public ones. I've heard guys from behind the scenes who are working, for example, out at Montauk at that old lab out there, who've described various energy that could actually create even time travel. I think if we actually achieve this kind of energy, it's going to transform our entire consciousness of reality, Alex. Because remember, we are physically energetic beings. We are not really matter, right? At the level of atoms moving and motion, we're mostly energy. We're our actual.
We're a blueprint that organized matter into an energy matrix.
Exactly. So the more that we can, I think the energy revolution is important because it'll help transform how we even perceive our physical environment. Imagine that nuclear fusion is accomplished, and that we could actually then work on what's called the plasma torch, which is still being devised, but you could basically close the material system. So you could recycle everything on the planet. You could basically take all
our good old friend Skype coming in and out.
Amazing what that.
Go back and repeat what you said in the last 10 seconds about the plasma torch.
Well, the nuclear fusion concept of closing, using the plasma to close the material cycle, so that you could recycle all material on the planet, all waste products across the globe. No more shipping off your garbage to China or selling off scrap paper or whatnot. You could actually break it down to its basic elements and reutilize it.
Well, we know a lot of technologies have been developed and are listed as disruptive by the establishment and the cartels, the big oil companies and banks, and they've actually been shelving it for a long time, a la Raiders of the Lost Ark, the allegory of the huge warehouse with, just full of all the things they're hiding. I mean, do you think the establishments can ever let us get to that level? Because they are clearly suppressing things.
Yes, there is a suppression. And I think even sometimes people talk about UFO sightings, and there are very real people, colonels and lieutenants and people from the Air Force and pilots who will tell you about UFOs they've seen. And a lot of that, I believe, is frankly military tech, like high-end military tech that could have been evolved.
What do you think about top moonwalkers, top astronauts saying that there were spaceships out there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, again, whether or not that's an extraterrestrial component, which frankly we could go into all day.
I was told by Raymond Teague, and he had national security letters on his wall. He had presidential commendation with his name on it, from Ronald Reagan and stuff for being, and he was a frontline, guy running cameras on the moon, Skylab.
This is Bernie Sanders, and I'm quite upset. If you guys saw the Iowa caucus the other night, you would know that I worked extremely hard for these votes. And the people that were working in the Iowa caucus took what I worked hard for and gave it to someone else. A lying, cheating, horrible human being by the name of Hillary Clinton. And I don't understand how anybody could like something like this. That you work hard for something your whole life and you earn something, and then you're expected to give it to someone else who's not as deserving and is too lazy or more of a piece of crap than you are. What kind of person would even think about something like that? Hey, that'd be you, Bernie Sanders. Guess you just felt the burn. You can find more reports like this at Infowars.com. I'm Joe Biggs.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure Ancient Defense for you and your family. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. That's ancientdefense.com.
General, what do you think about the FBI saying that there's a terror alert on Monday about a potential Fort Hood situation?
The police are shoving people, shoving Alex, shoving the crowd. Here we go, folks, I'm being assaulted.
Whether it's the radio show, the news websites, documentary films, or the nightly news, InfoWars is the tip of the spear.
Is this another false flag stage attack to take our civil liberties and put more homeland security while sticking their hands down on the pants on the streets?
It's up to us to set brush fires in the minds of men and women everywhere, and that's what PrisonPlanet.tv is designed to do.
You watch, the Assad regime is going to be blamed or accused of using chemical weapons against the so-called rebels.
What we see now is a war against reality. It's a war against the truth.
It's more vital than ever that supporters of freedom become members of PrisonPlanet.tv and share their membership with up to 11 friends and family. Visit InfoWarsNews.com today. Become a member, share your membership, and help take the InfoWar to the next level. InfoWars Life and InfoWarsLife.com is extremely excited to announce our latest release, Winter Sun, a revolutionary type of vitamin D3. Winter Sun is a premium quality vitamin D3 nutritional supplement. It is produced by extracting oil from healthy, nutrient-dense plants known as lichens. Every batch is analyzed for purity and D3 content. It's completely free of toxins and allergens. Visit InfoWars.com today or call 888-253-3139.
If you were on Wall Street today, you would smell the rank stench of pessimism. Citigroup strategist Jonathan Stubbs was quoted in a recent report stating, "The world appears to be trapped in a circular reference death spiral. Stronger U.S. dollar, weaker oil commodity prices, weaker world trade petrodollar liquidity, weaker EM and global growth, and repeat. Ad infinitum. This would lead to oil-mageddon, a significant and synchronized global recession, and a proper modern-day equity bear market." Meanwhile, the Chinese company Chongqing Cason Enterprise Group is attempting to acquire the Chicago Stock Exchange, a definitive deal requiring regulatory approval that is expected to be completed in the second half of the year. Bloomberg reports the Chicago Stock Exchange, a subsidiary of CHX Holdings Incorporated, is minority owned by a group including E-Trade Financial Corporation, Bank of America Corporation, Goldman Sachs Group Incorporation, and J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. According to the company, the minority shareholders are also selling their stake, Karen said. The acquisition would be the first of a U.S. exchange by a Chinese company. The 134-year-old Bourse, which handles about 0.5% of the U.S. stock trading, would give the buyer a beachhead in the $22 trillion American equity market, where regulations require trades to be routed to whichever exchange has the best price for a stock at a given moment. As free-falling Chinese equities spill over and tank global markets, the Chinese, with well over $72 billion invested in the United States, are now being embraced by the drug cartel money-laundering United States criminal stock market class as their owner.
As a result of HSBC Bank's USA AML failures, at least $881 million in drug trafficking proceeds, including the proceeds of drug trafficking by the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico, were laundered through HSBC Bank USA. That's what Eric Holder's Justice Department said. $881 million in drug trafficking money laundered by HSBC. And he says, you might remember, this is Matt Taibbi saying, you might remember the Sinaloa cartel had ISIS-style torture videos, but HSBC laundered their cash. They even created, listen to this, HSBC created a special teller window to make sure that the Sinaloa cartel's deposits were made easier.
While the Dow falls, mainstream media desperately announces that the U.S. created 151,000 new jobs in January, and the unemployment rate dropped below 5% for the first time in 8 years. But that fairy tale quickly falls flat on its face. The Washington Examiner reports the new Bureau of Labor Statistics reveals that 665,000 jobs were actually lost in January, and that those supposed 151,000 added jobs appear to be the working class taking on second jobs. The American middle class has fallen below 50%. The millennial generation continues to struggle to enter the workforce, and every tax-paying American owes $41,000. That will increase to $142,000 in roughly 20 years. But by then, we may all be maintaining the robot workforce, living in homes the size of closets, and speaking Chinese. John Bound for Infowars.com.
Hey, who do you guys think won the debate last night?
We didn't see it, I'm sorry.
No?
Yeah.
Feeling the burn, or?
Absolutely, I'm all for Bernie Sanders.
Yes?
All day.
Republican or Democrat?
It was Democrat.
Not Hillary, that's for sure.
I like Bernie a lot.
You're feeling the burn.
Well, I'm about to burn, but I mean, he's saying a lot of things. I just don't know that he can get anything done in our political system, you know?
Unfortunately, based on this year's candidates, I'm feeling the desire to move to Canada.
Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders? Who are you wanting to see in the White House?
A Republican.
Well, how strange do you think it is that he's almost tied with Clinton? She was like a shoo-in for president.
Well, I don't think it's strange at all when you look at some of the behind-the-scenes campaign work that he's done and just the number of individual contributions that he was able to collect. I think more people are on board with Bernie than than the national media wanted us to think. So,
I just don't think they really understand what socialism means. So, I think they're going to be very surprised if he wins.
Well, I think that democratic socialism is just that's the political system that's going to survive in our world today. I mean, all the countries in Europe that are successful, Scandinavian countries, German countries, that's what they do. You know, you get somebody that takes care of you your entire life, and you pay heavily for it.
I used to go to school in Vermont, and I'm definitely feeling the burn pretty hard. So,
what do you see for the empire?
I see success.
So, are you feeling the burn, or?
No. Oh, no. I'm on the other side.
So why do you think Clinton hasn't been arrested yet?
She's protected by the political powers. So she's got a big veil of strength in front of her that they can't get through.
Do you think it's a failure of our political system that she's like the front runner for the presidency?
Oh, yes. Oh, do I agree. That's why I'm voting for Trump. I was a Democrat all the way, but Republican all the way.
I'm a Democrat, and I feel like both candidates are just not suited for what we have, and Donald Trump is a completely different card, so it's a really tough decision.
You don't think he would run the country like a business?
God, I think he'd run it like a circus.
So you were Democrat, and now you're voting Trump?
Right.
Wow, what happened?
Well, because I'm tired of all the bull, you know what I mean? And he's not I don't think he's out there for the money. I think he's out to straighten this country out. Yeah. And that's what we need. We need somebody who's going to bring back our jobs, stop outsourcing everything, and build the borders, like he said.
Hillary may be a bitch, but you know what? She's our bitch.
Join me.
So you don't see her getting arrested or indicted for anything?
Oh, come on. Bill Clinton had a blowjob in the Oval Office, and he got indicted, but he didn't get impeached. I mean, come on, over some emails?
Crush them.
You know, Australia is a good example. Canada is a good example. The UK is a good example. Why? Because each of them had mass killings.
Somebody somewhere will comment and say, Obama politicized this issue. Well, this is something we should politicize.
I'm not going to carry a gun. I don't want to be involved in a gunfight.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in.
Go ahead. Make my day.
So the notion that gun laws don't work, it's not borne out by the evidence.
He says that Chicago police had a plan over this bloody 4th of July weekend. Nonetheless, as you indicated, Corey, there was a count of casualties that could have been from Afghanistan or Iraq.
We'll make it harder for law-abiding citizens, and criminals will still get their guns.
In many cases, the offenders, felons, some out on parole, some out on bond.
We have to respect the tradition in this country of people who want to defend themselves and their family from violence. There are people at high levels in this government who have bodyguards 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The average American does not have that.
Mayor Bloomberg, why can you defend yourself but not the majority of Americans? I mean, look at the team of security you got.
Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this, and we need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Was this the weapon of choice for a new kind of terrorist? When a 5-year-old girl said she and a classmate should shoot each other with bubbles, the school called it a terrorist threat.
AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Lay down your arms, you damn rebels!
But we don't need the ability to arm ourselves against the Army or the police.
What kind of a situation in the U.S. would you see that happening?
I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons.
Discovered the clergy would help the government with potentially their biggest problem, us.
To say we're not turning our guns in, and we're not running, and we're not backing down. If you want them, come and take them.
Brain Force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're gonna crash, you're gonna feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for. You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Well, we have a team in New Hampshire right now, or actually almost in New Hampshire. They landed in Boston this morning. They're going to be driving up there. It's Richard Reeves and Matt Weber. Matt's a control room guy who works on the live show, and he also does step in to do field reporting, and he's become a very valuable member of the team. And right now, last night I texted those two guys, and I said, I want you to talk to everybody that you meet in New Hampshire and just ask them one question and get this on tape. Are they going to be voting for Marco Rubio? Because I am just astounded at how he came out of nowhere in Iowa to place third, because we know Microsoft was counting the votes, and that's his second biggest donor. And so I'm wondering if that will be the same in New Hampshire, because now if you look at, let's see, here's the story out of the Boston Globe. New Globe poll shows Rubio closing in on Trump in New Hampshire. So this looks to be the wonderkind they're going to force on us, Marco Rubio. And here's another interesting story out of the Miami New Times. Marco Rubio's childhood friend tied to Miami's most infamous gay porn case. And it talks about Marco got arrested back in a park that was well known to be like a sort of like a public brothel. And yeah, so Marco Rubio is this guy can definitely be controlled. And that is why you see him rising in the polls. So without further ado, Richard Reeves, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Rob Do. And what you're looking at right now is the steeple of the Old North Church. We are, in fact, right now, we just landed shortly a while ago in Boston, Massachusetts, and behind us at the backdrop is the Old North Church. And just imagine the situation had Paul Revere not done his famous work that night of shining the lights in the steeple of the Old North Church and making his midnight ride, because potentially that's what we've got to potentially we are shining the light. Alex Jones, Rob Dew, the whole crew at InfoWars is shining the light of the New World Order red coat invasion. But with Rand Paul dropping out, which I know you want to talk about Marco Rubio, so we'll talk about Marco Rubio first. But Rand Paul's dropping out could be literally like Paul Revere not doing the ride that night. So with regards to regards to Marco Rubio, the push for Marco Rubio, the way I figure it is you've got the anti-establishment vote adding up right now. In Iowa, for example, it added up to 67%, which tells me that the potential out there for an establishment candidate to get consolidated votership would be roughly around 33%. So what I see are the powers that be doing their very best to get that full 33% of the establishment GOP, the old guard GOP people, to rally around and push Marco Rubio. And I would like to remind you that, in fact, we did see in that caucus that Matt and I did live on Skype, we saw, in fact, if I remember correctly, it was 108 votes for Marco Rubio and 56 votes for Donald Trump in second place. So the Marco Rubio zombie bots, New World Order controlled, Fox News controlled bots, they are indeed out there. They are for real. As a matter of fact, right now, when we pulled up to the Old North Church, there's a small tour bus here, and it contained a load of Floridians up here to support on their way to New Hampshire for Marco Rubio. So there are 30 to 33% of the bots that potentially get consolidated for Marco Rubio, and that is the case.
And they're literally bussing in supporters, because I don't think they see the same support in New Hampshire that they're going to see in Florida for Rubio, because that's where he's from. That's where he's a senator. And that's really scary that they're going to push. They know Jeb Bush doesn't have a chance, but they go, well, we got this other guy. He's our backup. And, he's like a Mitt Romney, John McCain, as far as I'm concerned, just there to be a placeholder, to do nothing, to allow Hillary Clinton or in last two elections, Barack Obama, just allow him to march right in.
Well, Rob, the New World Order has as many backup plans as there are letters in the alphabet. They've got at least 26 backup plans. Marco Rubio is probably plan B or plan C already, because we know Jeb Bush was, at least on the Republican side, their plan A. Marco Rubio is plan B or C. That may or may not work. And let me tell you, the GOP still has a delegate strategy in the works. And let me kind of segue into the Rand Paul dropping out.
Sure, go ahead.
Let you know why this is critical. I think it's a key mistake that Rand Paul has dropped out this pronto in the race. First of all, there's a big debate coming up tomorrow night. He would have had probably the largest platform to hit the barbed wire on issues, to put news out there, to let people know what's going on out there against the New World Order. He could have been on there tomorrow night. He blew that chance. He's not going to be on the stage tomorrow night. And even bigger, in my book, is that potentially with Rand Paul dropping out, is that percentage that Rand Paul is getting, those people are hot to go to precinct primaries, precinct conventions, precinct caucuses, and potentially him dropping out really impacts the level of patriots that end up going to Cleveland in July. And we need to get the word out that everybody that's liberty and freedom-minded, constitutional-minded, just because Rand Paul has stepped out of the race, do not back out by any means. Make sure and go out and vote. Make sure and be in your caucuses, be in your precinct conventions, and get yourself to Cleveland. Because if not, what the GOP is counting on is they're counting on the old guard, establishment, GOP party hacks to show up at their conventions and caucuses and end up filling up Cleveland, and then they'll put in whoever they want. They'll put in Mitt Romney or whoever, Marco Rubio. They'll trot in Jeb Bush. And so Rand Paul stepping out right now, I tell you, it's really frustrating because I don't think that Rand Paul gave Alex Jones a 5-minute phone call in this decision-making process, and that's irritating because we, the Info Warriors, Alex Jones, all the whole audience out there and everybody...
Been very supportive of the Pauls, very supportive of what they've been doing.
Right. In 2008, Ron Paul could win a House district in, around Victoria, Texas on his own. But the 2008 campaign, Alex Jones, the Info Warriors, all the audience that's out there listening to the broadcast today, it's you guys that we made it all together. We made the Ron Paul phenomenon happen in 2008.
Even Hillary Clinton admitted she'd never seen so many vigorous support for any candidate ever than she saw for Ron Paul. She admitted that in a congressional hearing.
That's right. And that enthusiasm, that diligence of the volunteerism, the working that they're willing to do, the phone calls they're willing to make, the doors they're willing to knock on, the conventions they're willing to attend. If we lose that factor, then 20% of the patriots that should be at Cleveland will probably not show up. And Rand Paul is not providing any direction to those people, the people on the ground, the folks on the ground that are voting in Iowa and all these different states. In 2012, it was Iowa that was one of the states that had a Ron Paul majority in 2012 at the RNC, the Republican National Convention down in Florida in 2012. Iowa was one of those states. It was because those people that went to those caucuses the night of the Iowa caucus back in 2012 followed through with the convention process. They went to their county convention, senatorial district, state convention, and they followed up through, and they made it as a majority up to the RNC in 2012, and they were prepared to deliver a majority of their votes at the RNC for Ron Paul.
And Paul beat 5 other people that are still in the race.
Absolutely. He finished 5th.
Yeah.
He had a respectable finish. And I understand the thinking that, I've got a hot race in my Senate seat. But you know what? He could have done himself a lot of good by being in this big national debate.
Built a lot of capital because the New Hampshire, that's what everybody's looking at now. This is the first primary. This is what people are gearing for, and this is going to set the tone. Iowa, sometimes, Rick Santorum won it last election. He's nowhere, and he already dropped out, but he won it last time. He got 1% of the vote this time.
Right.
So we know he's not the anointed one, unlike Marco Rubio, who we saw jump into 3rd. And I think that's really troubling. I think he's going to be the new face of the Republican establishment. They're going to be pushing him. I think Trump's kind of alienated himself from Fox News by not participating in that Fox News debate and really calling out.
Right. As a matter of fact, I even talked about that the Saturday after we were in Dubuque, Iowa, the Saturday after the Fox debate where Trump put on the Veterans Fundraising event.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about that, how on Saturday, basically Fox News had an ignore blackout on Donald Trump.
Well, that's it for our show tonight. Be sure to go to prisonplanet.tv and get yourself a free trial. You can see the nightly news, the special reports, the rants, all right there at prisonplanet.tv, and it helps fund our operation. Also, go to the Alex Jones channel on YouTube. You can see many of the special reports there as well. Well, I'm Jakari Jackson from the InfoWars Command Center, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams apiece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult. And it just synergistically puts everything in there. InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com. Or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.